All right, let's get this thing cracking. Kyle, welcome to. I think that this is our 10th episode of what we call the Blueprint Academy, where we talk about the sexiest topic in the world, which is construction drawing, QC, and review. Pleasure to have you, man. Thank you so much for joining, Harry and BK.
Yeah, good morning.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Kyle, we're all dying to know, why on earth did you get into this crazy racket?
So my origin story is similar to a lot of guys that I know that are in the construction industry. My dad was a construction worker, and so was my grandfather. So obviously, when the time came for me to choose a career, I said, I don't know, but definitely not construction.
Yeah.
So I went away to school. I studied history and government.
Okay.
Pursued that for a little while. Realized this isn't really for me. Maybe I'll go the architecture route. So I transferred and started taking architecture courses. Got deeper and deeper into it, and like slowly, like a magnet, got sucked towards the construction side. And now here I am. I'm a construction, a commercial construction estimator and project manager now. So
Destiny.
right where I never wanted to be.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of how it has a really magnetic pull to it. I think that was the right kind of word to choose. It's incredible. By the way, I could never be an architect. I feel very bad for architects to have to like detail doorknobs and stuff. That sounds.
Yeah. No, that I realized that pretty early on in that pursuit that, this is
I love it. I think that that's just a really natural story. I think Brian, Harry, and I will all share something a little bit similar to that. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
you're probably right as it relates to just how this stuff goes. So let's kind of get into it. What you've gone to university, you obviously history, government, architecture wasn't for you. You get out into the field. Tell us some horror stories, man. Tell us the good stuff. What are some of those stories that kind of really cemented that this was the career for you?
So, I gotta say, so when I forgot my first job in the industry, I was a junior estimator. And that I never wanted to be that, because in school they tell you that is like the hardest job in construction. So like you
True.
be a project manager, be a super. You don't want to be an estimator. It's a thankless job. Like you're $1 over, you didn't get the job, and if you're too low, then I'm
You're a loser. Yeah.
So there's like such a narrow margin of error. But I got offered a job. One of my professors put me in touch with a local contractor that was looking for somebody. And estimating is interesting because it's a hybrid of it's like accounting mixed with art.
Yeah.
It really is, because there's so much gut feeling that's involved with it. Because every project's a little bit different. You can have you can compile all this data on cost per square foot, cost per linear foot, hourly rates, updated material pricing. But at the end of the day, it's worth whatever you can get guys to do it for. So there's a little bit of a pain and aggravation factor involved in any project. Getting people on the hook, getting quotes, all that. It's like being at the roulette table. It really is, and that really captivated me early on. I mean, I love the chaos of bid day and like the adrenaline rush. That's like my favorite thing, because you really don't get that much in this industry, or really in professional life at all, short of being in a very high risk industry, which construction is a very high risk industry. But that's the big thing that's got me so interested in marked up, is that so much of my job is reviewing blueprints and reviewing multiple revisions of blueprints, and having AI be able to do a cursory review, or even if it's low-hanging fruit, things that don't make sense, details that don't tie to, like detail indicators that don't tie to a detail, that is such a weight off my shoulders to be able to have something just take care of that on the first run. So I don't even have to look at it until I know that marked up went through it. But it's great. I think it's just such a great idea. And like I said, that's such a huge part of what I do. I look at so many blueprints that makes me sick. My whole life is looking at a new set of blueprints, and over time, they all kind of the details all mixed together. It all just becomes one. It's a job.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, this was here, that was there. So, yeah, being able to utilize AI to kind of help organize my life and limit the amount of things that I can touch is great. I'm very excited for that.
I was gonna ask, and thank you. That's awesome. Kind of what other AI technologies are interesting to you, or have you kind of explored? We'll come back to some more questions on marked up. I'm kind of so curious what else you find useful. Are you using anything for takeoff, or have you looked at anything for bid management, or is there other technology that's really interesting to you?
Not really. I mean, I'm really not doing anything AI wise other than this at the moment. Like I still do all my takeoffs myself. I use software for it, but there's still a lot of manual input. Bid solicitation. There's probably an AI component. We use software that kind of based on geography makes recommendations for people based on the scope of work that they do. But that's really it. That's the bulk of what I do today. On the project management side, almost none. I mean, we used software for reporting, managing submittals, managing things like that. But that still all depends on the input that the work that we do in the office to put into the system and then spit it out. It's not really doing any work for us in that sense. It's really just organizing it.
I'm kind of curious, how often do you guys receive like 3D models, or do you guys ever get that type of documentation as part of the bid pack?
I've been pushing for that for years since I was in school and we used BIM. Architects don't do that. They're very hesitant to release that for bidding because it's not always as accurate, because their job is to depict the building. It's not to necessarily do an accurate takeoff. Yeah. So if you release that BIM model and it does all that for you. If they were to release that, it could potentially be used against them if the quantities are wrong.
Yeah,
so that's
good point.
We get it a lot after we get the project, like from our subcontractors for shop drawings. Specifically, like structural steel, we'll get a BIM model, and that's awesome. That's so helpful because there's so many. It's so dependent on like minute dimensions and elevations. So to be able to compare that with like the foundation that's in the ground in the field, it makes it so much easier versus having to imagine all this based off of numbers on a sheet of paper.
Yeah, BK and I, way back when we worked in the same kind of like office space, but we worked. He worked on like. He managed pool planning. This is a big project. This is like over 1 million square feet. I think at the peak, we had like 800 or 900 workers on site. And
it was a beast.
It was a beast project. And so BK would sit across from me, manage all pool planning. And at the time, I was taking 3D quantities from all the different federated models and using production rates to figure out how long it would take to do work in that particular area. And so I'm always fascinated by this. And so my own story is that I used to be a hardcore BIM nerd, and now I think 2D is king. So that's kind of part of
it. Yeah, it's interesting because in the BIM, when it first started, it sounded like it was the greatest thing since sliced bread sort of thing. But man, it's I think you kind of mentioned it, Kyle. It's like, if the effort's not there up front, then the end product is just not worth it at all, right? It took a ton of management to make the BIM model work, get it coordinated. I tried it once as the BIM manager, and it was miserable. And it could have been on me. I'll be frank with you guys, but it is tougher than you think. So, anyways, it's the BIM. I think was supposed to be the savior of construction, and it hasn't turned out to be that yet. We still rely super heavily on 2D drawings.
Yeah, I mean, I'll find even on projects that I've been and architects that I work with, they'll do like they're still using 2D despite using BIM. Like they're still doing, you know, old school CAD details despite having a BIM model. So it's like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. Why go the extra?
It's well, like I said, I think it's super helpful on because there's so many minute things that have to be figured. It's so hard when you're designing an entire project. Some of the nitty gritty just kind of goes away. It's unfortunate, but it's just reality that it's impossible to work out every minute detail down to the 16th of an inch when you're putting these drawings out to bid, and especially if it's something preliminary. But at the shop drawing level, where you're actually building something, the person who's putting it together has to have that intricate understanding of what we're actually going to put in place. I think it's super helpful because it's like it's the first pass. It's the first opportunity to build the thing.
Yeah.
Like we have a bunch of known factors. Like we have a survey done for this foundation, and we know how big it is. And now that affords us the opportunity to build this bin. We can recreate what's there, what we know to be there, what dimensions we have confirmed, then we can build this thing. And then short of somebody making a mistake and dragging something the wrong way, you know what you got. Like you're ready to go. We can fabricate everything, get it out there. We know it's right. So I think the end goal for BIM isn't what was anticipated, but it's still I think that's gonna be the route that it goes. I think for shop drawings and things like that, for smaller scale individual components, kind of like Inventor, like in school I used Inventor, the Inventor software. It's like that. It's like a component software. Like if you were to design a watch, I think it's great for that kind of thing. I think a building is just too intricate. There's too much going on, and there's too many different people involved.
So much going on. This is the fundamental reason why the level of detail stuff was developed way back when I was at Vico, so that we can progress the building. And this is kind of what always has me going back, which is like, even though there is a 3D model that can have all this metadata inside of it, the output's always a 2D drawing, and yet we've seen 100% issued for construction sets or like revision, whatever. And they're still missing, again, back to the call out example. Call outs are still referencing details that don't exist. Tags are in the sets that don't actually like line up to anything in a schedule or a keynote anywhere area. Like this fundamental like spell check problem still persists. And I think that's a natural frustration. And I'll pick on Harry here because I want to tell this story about why on earth he ordered from the schedule.
Well, it was just kind of a natural thing, right? Like, I didn't really assume that I would have to go through each page and count the doors when the schedule is right there. Ordering off a schedule seemed to be quite a natural thing for my 18-year-old brain. It turned out to be an expensive mistake for my company, mind you. But building on that, Kyle, I've done a little look into Mid-Hudson, and you guys are pretty heavily involved in design and build contracts. So the pre-construction stage is super important. And I'm just curious, how important is it for you guys to catch these areas early on so they don't become an issue on site? Because I assume that catching these things early on is going to make a massive difference in the confidence of your on-site team.
Oh, it's hugely critical. There's kind of two facets to that too, right? So there's when you're in pre-con and you're getting these multiple revisions of drawings and updates, you get, from schematic design to design development drawings. It's critical that in addition to just reviewing essentially the entire set again, because you almost have to do that, but being able to pinpoint every change that's been made, because in pre-con, you're kind of wearing two hats, right? You have to build this and you have to make money on the project, but you're also working with the owner to make sure that they're getting the best bang for their buck on the value engineering side. So to be able to pinpoint every change that's been made or mistake, like you said, Harry, is critical, because on the mistake side, obviously, you can't have that. You can't have a schedule that says one thing and then plans to say another. It's just setting the project up for disaster.
Yeah.
But in terms of even just noting things that changed, and being able to assign a cost to that so that you can provide that feedback to the owner, like, hey, they updated this. Take an example. We're now doing thin brick veneer on the exterior wall as opposed to a ground face block, right? Whatever. This is going to be the cost impact of that. And being able to catch that early on before the ship is out to sea, and then we start building this project and realize, oh my God, this is going to blow our budget. What do we do now? You know, once you have a full blown construction set and then you start revising things, that's the first step towards having a disorganized and incohesive set of design documents. Once you start changing things, once we're building stuff, it's no good. I mean, you can, if you're going to start building off of a 75% set, like in a design build stage, it's one thing to have items that give allowances in for because you don't know what you're going to do. It's another thing to have to backtrack and start changing stuff. That's when things start to get chaotic because you're using different materials. You have to be aware of the chain effect of changing this. What's the effect on this, right? If we change this component of the exterior wall, what happens to the structure? What happens to our openings? What happens to the depth of our lintels? All these things. Like, it's so key to catch all this stuff in the pre-construction side and to put the owner on track to having a building that makes the most sense and making them fully aware of what they're getting. But I don't know. I can't explain enough how important it is to weed out all of these things on the pre-construction side. Once we start making changes during construction, it just everything becomes a mess.
Cost
not
blows up. Yeah. Well, I imagine with the quantity of drawings you're going through in a week, being able to just kind of quickly zip through it and find some issues and send it back to the design teams like, hey, you guys, we got this problem, right? You need to fix all these call outs or these schedules are incomplete. I really need this done so I can put together a solid number for the client. I can imagine if we could save you a few hours every week doing that, then it's got to be I can only think it has to help you, right?
Well, yeah. Think about the project that you guys talked about, that monster project that had 800 guys on it and at a clip. Imagine, you run into an instance where you have a detail that doesn't work and you press pause on 800 guys in the field for one day. What's the cost impact?
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, it's so hugely important to weed these things out.
That's right. And the owner hires the GC as a professional to find these things before it happens, right? But that's just construction, unfortunately. That's just how it is, but we're trying to get ahead of the game.
Yeah, there's Brian, the other week we were chatting about this in Florida, like the reality of that project. There were some like 30-ish project engineers to I think maybe 4